building sales system or building scalable sales system, a bit of a dry topic, if you ask me. Has a lot of theory to it. I've seen that you folks have gone through a lot of interesting topics around digital marketing and different ecosystems. Sales is mostly about, how do you go and you pitch, or how do you do flows, and how do you go and always keep on having this ever chasing, ever ending goal of targets and incentives. But if you try and look at it from the end business or the end objective that we are going for, and this is a question many of you would be seeing today. Some people already have a sales system in the back of their mind or back of their head, which they are doing in a formal or an informal method. But you will always have a method to try and move forward from whatever uncertainty that you are looking at. That's what I've tried to build together here. I joined a complete early stage company with the aim to grow it many folds, and we were to an extent successful there. But to begin with, there was one person, there's me with 2 or 3 sales reps, and we went out uh, with our laptops to try and see how much market share or how many clients then we can win. So was that the time that we should have built sales system and looked at it? Was it the time that we should have started looking at the end goal, which we will do 3 and 4 years? Because today, if you see, we are 50 people. We moved from a 40-50 crore turnover in 2021 to around 600 crores. In hindsight, I don't think it would have been possible, or we would have had the journey that we had if we had not started charting out on planning the right way to go to the market, understanding the buyer, trying and building a cohesive system in terms of the sales process, and building other crucial elements like sales hiring and sales training. So when we talk about sales system, the first question that comes is it even required? I know I am doing really great. I am able to build my team. I understand my market very well. I am able to identify the customers, and I have a plan in mind. But is a sales system required? As I said, many of us will realize we already are working with a sales system. We are working with steps which ensure that we are successful as far as sales are concerned. And it is neither about the size of sales team that we are talking about. I would say even an individual salesperson or the only salesperson in an organization should be having a sales system. Otherwise, there is nothing to evaluate uh, or course correct if things start going wrong, and nothing to evaluate if you're trying to look towards scalability. Now, 1 or 2 things which always come in. I am very happy with the state I am in. I am not looking at scaling. Then I think we are all in the wrong place. If you will put hand on heart, we are all looking for growth, both individually and our organization. And it's not only to meet revenue growth. If you don't grow at a certain stages, most of the today's businesses that we work in are a winner takes all kind of a ecosystem. Be it the HRMS SaaS business that I am in, be the recruitment business I was there earlier on the job board side. You will not hear beyond. If I ask you what are the top recruitment sites that you go to, it will be Naukri, LinkedIn, and maybe one more. It will stop at that. We all are very well aware of it. The same might be happening in terms of booking tickets or anything that we are dealing with. So scale is very important, and one needs to start planning around it from day zero or day one. Seems like a very big task and seems like very theoretical. But in my past experience, it's very important. What kind of sales requires systems? I am actually into this sales process, which and these are again examples. I am actually selling Boeing, or I'm selling very complicated, very large value items. My one deal takes 15 to 18 months, and this deal is worth 20 to 100 crores. So do I need sales system? Because I'm only doing one sale in 6 months, and we have businesses like that. Earlier, certain businesses which are more strategic outsourcing from an IT size, you would see that organizations like IBM do 2 deals a year. But do they have sales system? Yeah, they have a much deeper sales system, because that one deal has many sub deals in it. And the success or failure of not only the deal or the execution of that deal depends on whether there was a sales system behind it or not. The other extreme example or use case can be that I actually am having a lot of sales. I do 5-10 sales in a day. I don't have a long pipeline and all these stages that you are talking about. So why do I need to have a sales system? There's a lot of inbound or a lot of referral business that is coming in. I think that equally requires a sales system, because one needs to understand conversion. One needs to understand which system is working well. One needs to understand which system is where I am able to monetize well. And sales does not stop only at closing a deal. And this is an important thing we will touch again and again. Am I able to build the entire sales system to have better customer retention? Am I able to build an effective sales system to kind of ensure that my customers are satisfied? They become my salesperson. So the moot point is any kind of a sale would require some system or the other. What we are advocating here is trying to put it in place, chart out the key components as far as the sales system is concerned, and lastly, try and keep on evaluating, which is the last step. There is no fixed or final system. Again, this will be something you will find. If we have an effective sales system, it means we are continuously evaluating it. We are continually looking at, because end of the day, we are serving an external world. My customer might be changing. Even from a SaaS world, I am there in a HRMS SaaS environment, and we are kind of doing an end-to-end kind of a solution. What we understand, from a large customer perspective, their requirements translate an offline and an online to offline kind of an environment. There's a lot of new talk which is happening around how we can build AI into our HRMS SaaS systems. If I will not be having a feedback loop, I might just be looking at ChatGPT as a gimmick and letting it rest aside. So I need to have an effective sales system, and that's what ensures organizations which succeed compared to organizations which fall on the wayside. So evaluation will become a very important part of an effective sales system. Why are sales systems required? They're an important component of the sales cycle. Scalability is imperative when we are doing it. Sitting in 2019 October, when I started out, we were only in one location, was based out of Bangalore, having an idea about all clients, all pipeline, all end sales that we want to do. Today we have around 30 to 40 clients, good relationship with all of them. Today we have around 140 to we have around 200 plus clients onto the workforce fulfillment business. This is the contract staffing business that we do. We essentially provide a digital solution for contract staffing to large organizations. Today we have 200 plus clients as far as that business is concerned. We have 25 salesperson who are dedicated to these clients. There was a time when I was involved in setting up the Bombay team or the Delhi team. Today we can't do that. There needs to be a second or a third tier of sales team which will go and they will talk to the customers. They might meet similar buyer personas, but with different trainings, different pedigree, different experiences. The customer is still looking at Betterplace as one entity. So we need to ensure that as we are moving, our next year plan is to become 60 salespeople. As we keep on scaling, we are able to ensure all sales components are able to scale along with the increase in business size. Other thing is, in the beginning, when we started out, we were talking about 2 crore, 4 crore deals. Today, we're talking about 30, 40 crore deals, which means my sales system also evolved. It's not the same sales system that I have in 2019-20. The process has become far more complex. We'll share some samples of how the process looks now. But as that happened, there was a system which kept on ensuring where we are. That also ensured that there is consistency in how the customers are perceiving us, how the interactions are happening as far as the customers are concerned. Now, when we are, and again, beyond what we are trying to provide to the market, end of the day, it's a job that the customer is asking us to do. And there is a buyer or a buyer persona or a buyer journey where you're trying to embed your sales process, which eventually helps the client achieve the job that needs to be done through your products. I am doing more than 20 new acquisitions every month. Is the buyer or the customer going through the similar or same experience when they are interacting with anybody as far as the sales team is concerned? So it becomes essential to build a dependable customer-centric experience. Otherwise, there are a lot of time, there is a lot of supply pressure in the market. You get a lot of demand and you keep on servicing it. And when the demand dries out, like it's been happening in the last 6 to 8 months, you realize that a lot of these customers were not actually loyal to you because they came in a time of need, but you were not able to understand their real problem, understand their buyer journey, which eventually you realize that the retention of the customer or the satisfaction of the customer was not to the experience, and then they start moving away. So if there is a consistent experience and you are able to onboard customers and achieve the right jobs to be done, that is where your sales systems are able to support you effectively. And last, most important, is the predictability. Um, and this is a real life use case where we are today as far as our SaaS business is concerned. We have decent confidence as far as the April, May, June numbers and business is concerned. But the real end goal is to try and understand how will September happen, and that's become very important, right? Revenue is the only metric which ensures that the organization is able to make profits, survive, increase wallet share. So there are specific goals as far as September is concerned. Those goals can be broken into users that will come onto the HRMS SaaS platform. Those goals can be broken into number of additional customers that we will be having there. Now that has been broken down into specific phases of the sales cycle, sales process, and also being embedded as far as the other elements are concerned, like sales training, like ensuring that we are able to hire the right people for a September goal. So the work for September starts in February and March. So an effective sales cycle or sales process would drive revenue. It also gives predictability in terms of the conversion rate, and conversion rate is not only in a binary way that I had 100 people I was approaching and I am now at 20. Conversion rates at each cycle, because after a September, a November will come, a December will come, we need to do a March exit. So am I able to define the right conversion rates that I will reach in September for my closures, for my new clients that I will acquire, for my customer retention? Am I able to predict the right number of people who will be there in my pipeline? We'll come to pipeline and other elements later on. But just to give you a glance, am I able to identify the new prospects that I might have to reach out to? And do we have enough prospects identified, or we need to channelize an inbound marketing or a trade marketing kind of an exercise to get those right prospects by September to achieve my March? And customer retention is extremely important. If you have a leaking bucket, believe you me, none of this theory is going to work, and none of the theory essentially works if the entire organization only thinks about billing and closing days. As I said, there are times when it happens. I have seen it happen for around 9 to 12 months in the last, I would say, till December, Jan of 22. But after that, reality always strikes, and the churn rate of customer is something which becomes very important to identify. Otherwise, it's an endless supply of salesperson that you require, and that's always a difficult bunch to find and hire. So these are the components of a sales system that we'll try and work on. You would have got some idea when I was sharing, but it's not that the sales system eventually has only these four, and this is like a very clear prescription or written in law. It all depends on what the practitioner believes in. I have just put 4 components here. I have seen some sales system which will also talk about inbound marketing or inbound marketing channels, or lead generation is a very important part. There would be others which are equally important, which would be deciding and defining sales compensation, because every salesperson, in my belief, including me, is an entrepreneur in disguise. So they're always looking at maximizing as far as their compensation and incentives is concerned. So it becomes very important to see how they are able to give the right motivation and the right messaging. For today's discussion, we'll more or less try and focus on these 4. Buyer's journey. A buyer's journey has 2 or 3 elements: what questions we should ask, how we should formulate it. But more than that, buyer's journey involves 2 or 3 elements. What is my buyer persona? And some of you would have heard of this phrase earlier. A buyer persona is trying to identify what is this ideal buyer that I'll be speaking to. And this is not only something which works in a B2C environment, even in a B2B environment. Who's the final decision maker and what kind of a persona does he have? What is the job that needs to be done? So this is one framework. There are a number of frameworks to try and identify a buyer's journey. I find this one quite interesting. Sales process. Sales process is mostly the holy grail of the entire ecosystem. I would not say it's the independent component and should be the only one which is focused on. Mostly organizations only focus on this and leave the other ones aside. I would not prescribe that, but this is the holy grail. You need to have it at whichever stage that you are, so that you are able to identify how you are engaging with the buyer. This again needs to be buyer or customer focused, not inside out, how the salesperson is trying to define the process that, I actually make 3 calls to a customer and after that I go and I barge in, and then, some people then would say that, I then get a meeting and then I might try and bump into the customer at a conference. How is the customer looking at the buying process and how the sales process is embedded into it? But training again is not the favorite of everyone. People feel that it takes crucial time away from their actual job, which is sales or execution. But again, very important, because one is trying to understand and be consistent for the buyer, but other is also that the external world keeps on changing. Like I gave you an example of AI or chat GPT. So training is very important to engage with the buyer. And lastly, and equally important, is sales hiring. This does not work if the sales hiring is not in process and it is not tied up to 1, 2, and 3. And we will, if we get time, we will discuss how it is tied up to 1, 2, and 3. But sales hiring is equally important. Now, if you will see these 4 components, I have not put any steps or arrows because I don't think it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. Both are equally important components and they are interrelated. And we will try and go further into how they kind of speak to each other. But it's not that you need to first do the buyer's journey and then move to the sales process. And once you have the sales process defined, then you do training. In my belief, all 4 are equally important and need to be done parallelly. It's not an either or kind of a scenario. Again, always start with the right questions. The buyer journey. What is my customer trying to do or achieve? If you will look at it from any scenario, let's look at it from a product scenario. Is my customer trying to buy a product? You will eventually realize it's a job that needs to be done. A very classic example that you will see in a lot of textbooks is, and it sounds very interesting, that no customer is buying a drilling machine. They are essentially trying to look at quarter-inch holes to be created on the wall, or not even a quarter-inch hole to be created on the wall. Eventually, they're looking at a nice painting to be put in. And if you're able to understand that, uh, you can try and address the right emotions to reach out to the customer. A very pertinent example that a lot of you might can reflect on, and which will help us in forming the slides going forward, would be, take the example of microwaves. Are customers looking at buying a microwave? Not really. They are essentially trying to look at it in terms of how to heat food quickly, and how to be able to reuse food. So in a classic example, food used to always be consumed in the first floor. There was no concept of storing food. Then the concept of refrigerators and storing food and reheating milk and other things came in. The buyer persona also changed. Earlier there would be a lot of helps which would be helping you, but if you try and look at a buyer persona which is a which is a homemaker or a working woman, but short of time with the in a nuclear family setup, who's trying to look at having independence in terms of trying to put the lunch or the dinner on the table, and is trying to see how she can quickly be able to provide that food instead of going through the entire rigmarole. So that's the real job that needs to be done. The need identification might have happened much earlier, before even the microwave was invented. It might have happened when uh, somebody had to rush out for something important and came back and understood that we are getting late for lunch or we are getting late for dinner. And there might have been workarounds which might be happening. Why don't you go to the neighbor's house in the beginning? Or maybe I will try and keep it in a hot case, or in a different environment. And when microwave came in, it was able to capture the entire market. So this is a job that was required to be done or achieved. And if the person who invented the microwave definitely understood it, but today there are a number of providers who are doing it. If they're able to relate to this and address those emotions at the right time, they will be able to get a better resonance as far as the customer is concerned. Where is my customer in their buyer's journey? Am I, in this case, am I talking to the customer in the buyer journey when it's just passive, which means it's like a concept sale, and the needs need to be, it's a latent need which needs to be first evolved with the customer? Is it very active? I was actually looking for something to heat in a quick manner. Has it moved forward in the consideration state? I am looking at a Bajaj or a Samsung or a LG refrigerator, and then that needs to be addressed. Do I know or understand my competition? Now, in this case, obviously, when you're going to a microwave today, in a certain segment, the competition is three microwaves. But if you try and broaden the entire universe and look at it, the competition might be somebody putting in the extra 1 hour, or somebody using their domestic help to heat it, or somebody using a hot case to keep it warm so heating is not required. So, do I understand my competition? Uh, while I'll come to the case in the future, which is relevant to what how we understood and how we are leveraging it even today. But we have the software solutions which essentially are transformation from a digital perspective. I am having, or I am marking attendance. Do you have an attendance solution to try and do you have an attendance solution to try and mark this attendance in a digital manager so that it can reach the servers? But the story goes beyond just the digital transformation, even in this solution. Some clients might be looking at it to help in rostering to ensure that the people are reaching at the right time. Some might be looking at it from a shortfall perspective. Is there, that there's a possibility I might have 10% less in the 10 to 5 shift. So if one is able to understand the job that needs to be done and when did the client identify it, you are able to position and pitch more effectively. So this is a framework I picked up from the Rewired group. If you will go to JTBD, you will find number of frameworks that people have been using. I find it very interesting. So just to the detailing on the microwave point, is the first thought when the food went stale, or when the fridge came in and things started getting colder, or is the second thought of Microsoft of microwave when you were passively looking for workaround? Understanding that at different sets will understand where you are approaching. A lot of times in more evolved or growth markets, we are approaching the customer at the buying stage. And what do? We are going, and there is a technical bid, and then there is a price bid, and again the technical and the price bid, you uh, at times would succeed, at times you would fail. When you succeed, you're very happy that the price was the lowest perhaps. But if you are not understanding what the customer was actually looking at, what the job is done, this is where the entire scheme can break of satisfaction. So this becomes important. And every time every salesperson cannot identify that where they will go, I would say great if you are having a large funnel at the event 1 or event 2 stage. But even if you are reaching at this stage, try and go and understand the job that needs to be done. And that is going to ensure that the job is finished or experienced. Uh, Customer centric is the mantra that I keep on repeating. If the customer is satisfied, it gives you an opportunity to grow the business. It gives you another salesperson that you have who will become a strong proponent as far as your sales is concerned. Uncovering your customer journey, some points, understand the timeline, discover the first thought. Now, how will you do it once the sales is done? There are a number of methodologies behind it. One is simply researching. And a lot of times you will realize the first thought did not even come when and this, while I'm giving you a microwave example, and you might find other relatable examples in your day-to-day life. This is the same which happens in a business scenario or a business use case also. So just yesterday I was speaking to a very large conglomerate, and they already had a digital transformation process, and we were trying to pitch and show the entire, I was doing the demo and showing the entire process that we have, from hiring to onboarding, and what we do in terms of payroll management, attendance and all. And customer liked some point as far as onboarding is concerned. So we started going deeper. Why are they doing it? So they realized there is some issue in onboarding through a vendor that happened around 18, 15 months back in a plant. And that's where this thought process came in. And when it came in, the customer started looking at different ways to address it. And when we started showing our product with certain examples, that struck a chord. Now, there is a possibility that the customer has already been thinking about it for 18 months. So it's not that they will be sitting idle. They might have started passively looking. They might have created a workaround. Maybe ask the vendor to put one person there. Maybe put more manpower behind it. Maybe pick up certain items during the recruitment process. So then if you understand that, then you are able to position better. If still there is a person of the vendor who's sitting there to help in onboarding of these people, is it error free? Is it something which gives the customer visibility during the process, or you typically are looking at it binary 0 and 1? Is it tied up to hiring? Is it done also being able to do along with the hiring process? So is it candidate friendly? Because it just can't be from the employer side. It also needs to be looked at from the candidate side. Otherwise, there will be dissatisfaction on day 1, day 2, day 3. There's a lot of reliance on this one person who's sitting there. To discover the first thought, what made them finally go through the sale? As I said, there are times you will come to the buying process and you might be very happy that you made the sale. But if the satisfaction or a finished experience is important, then what did the customer do? And this is a difficult one. As I said, maybe some confessions. I am guilty of never going and asking or taking feedback, but it's an important one. You normally try and understand from the customer that why did you take our product, but what was the real thought process behind the entire journey, from the awareness to consideration and decision making, is a very important component that at times, a lot of times, you miss, because then you go into the cycle of going to the next pitch and the next pipeline and the next proposal. Okay, so what is the buyer's journey framework? I'll quickly run through it. It helps you align not only the sales process, but would also help you align the inbound team. Because there are times that the inbound team might get leads when the buyer is just passively looking. It might just be a problem statement. It also helps in aligning the pre-sales team. They know how to address and what is the solution to kind of discuss here. Sales process needs to be designed to be customer centric. So this will help a lot, and we will see it when we come to the sales process. We will talk about two elements here: what the salesperson is doing, but how the buyer is acting. And this can help in understanding where in the journey are we moving forward and how we are able to have a consistent approach as far as the salesperson is concerned. Now, in the buyer journey process, if you look at the this onboarding example or the microwave example, there will be an awareness stage, and at one side I have mentioned the awareness stage, at the other it is the stage that the salesperson is doing. There will be an awareness stage of the customer, either at a passive need or an actively looking kind of a scenario. That is the time you are identifying the customer and you are suspecting or prospecting as far as the customer is concerned. Then comes the consideration. They start looking at it actively. They start looking at the decision criteria. That's when you try and position yourself, and storytelling and emotions are very important when you're making a stir. So you know what story needs to be told. Story that needs to be told to this homemaker or this working woman who's looking at heating food fast in an efficient manner. It might, because it's a consumer I'm talking about, it's marketing which might be telling the story, but it's about making her independent, making her independent not only in terms of getting the food on the table, but also independent of, say, a domestic help, and that just stops becoming a bother for her. What is the client looking for in the buyer journey? And that's where you will be positioning. And it's not necessary that they are looking at all of these items together. And a lot of times when we get into the client conversations, and this is where the closure, win or loss, becomes very important, to learn from your clients why they are looking at you. So we right now, again, in an example, are speaking to a very large industrial house, and we are at final stages there. And it's been a 8 to 10 months kind of sales cycle itself. There the customer has been talking to us and it's gone through a number of demos and documentation and workflows. We are at good advanced stages in terms of closing it. But if you look at it in the, what I have discovered as far as what the customer is looking from me, customer essentially has two specific requirements to decide on the consideration set: size and scale. How many people will be able to support it? How many customers they are handling? And more importantly, technical prowess and security. Security is the number one criteria for the customer. And now this is going to be a very important feedback once we move forward, as far as going into the final stages, understanding our competition and going into closure is concerned, and to ensure that the customer stays satisfied. Some might be just innovation. A lot of people today, Android is able to match up uh, on every aspect to Apple, but a lot of us are using Apple because it was known for innovation. Apart from the brand value and the value, the price value relationship brings to the table, uh, uh, Apple was known for innovation. They were the first in the market. So that's where we look at it. Efficiency can be a number of aspects. Like I was talking about the onboarding example. Efficiency can be also from a cost cutting perspective. Client is specifically looking at cutting costs. Now, understanding thing will also make you realize that whether you are able to meet these needs, and where you are positioned. It's not necessary you are able to meet all needs, or you are able to position yourself against all. So if there is something where efficiency does not work for you, you're not very competitive and you're not focusing on productivity, it's essentially a governance layer you are giving on SaaS, or you are able to give better analytics and dashboards, then that is the one that you will go for, and those are the customers that you will go for. And finally is the decision process, whether the requirements were only functional, whether they were relationship based, and other things. So I had already discussed a bit about this attendance thing. So we had an attendance module to track and report on attendance for security guards for a global security firm, to prevent leakages. So what was the job to be done? One job, as I said, was mustering, rostering, trying to ensure that, it's a reporting mechanism to ensure that people are coming in, how many people are coming in, how many are getting attended. But the client was actually, when we went deeper into it, and this happened during the implementation phase, we realized the client is trying to break the leakages that are happening. So a lot of times the supervisor is in cahoots with the security guard, and there is a leakage which is happening where client is losing money. There are more guards being shown that they're actually there. And that's also affecting the relationship with their end clients. Because at the end of the day, if you see a security guard in a condominium or a more a corporate setup, the client will bill based on what they understand as people who have come in. So it was done to prevent leakages. Uh, so the client was trying to break the leakages and break this cahoot. And when we realized that, we also realized the client is actually looking for a much better billing methodology to their client, so that there is no to and fro as far as what they are saying were the number of guards on duty and the number of hours were concerned to what the clients agree to. And they were looking at a technology system. Once we were able to understand this, it actually not only was able to help us solve pain points of this specific client, it was also enabled us to try and provide a much stronger solution for other clients, in terms of trying to understand that, eventually these systems will have to be embedded or integrated with current ERP system, because that's where the billing relies. Or we might have to have a small billing module to enable the clients which don't have a very robust ERP system, to help these clients and use that as a billing mechanism for their end clients. And that's how the entire process went through this exercise. It was a decent discovery. It increased our stickiness with this specific client. From 8,000 security guards, we went to monitoring 30,000 out of their overall 40,000 security guards. We were able to monetize in different ways, in terms of adding a billing module, and also great stickiness in terms of integrating with their ERP system. Now coming to the next step, if you are able to identify the buyer's journey well, you will understand this will help us as a very crucial input to our sales process, that we will be talking about, or the sales stages, so that we are able to map the right sales stage to the buyer's journey. Prospecting, approaching, negotiation, and all these things in a sales process. So do we need to go through it? Who will decide, or who will give it to me? Will I get it from a CRM that has already got these opportunity levels identified in advance? So my take is it will come from the buyer stage, and understanding your buyer's journey, understanding your sales cycle, understanding different conversion rates, and what parts of the buyer journey is taking how much time. How do you measure progress in a sales process? So this again, imagine we go through all this exercise and create it. It will always be important to understand, how do you measure progress? Is it actually helping my salesperson to predict well? Is it actually helping me in my conversion rates? Is it actually also helping me identify and give a consistent sales experience to my buyer? All of these will be important, and these need to be continuously evaluated. Any of these that I'm sharing are not cast in stone, can't be taken as the only prescription to be taken by a doctor. One needs to look at it from the perspective of your own individual needs and how the market or the situation is evolving for you. What does the sales process entail? Clearly identify the steps in sales process with entry and exit criteria. Here, perhaps I will take some examples from the, before I come to what uh, in a certain use case we have been using as a sales process, and we don't do span, or we don't use suspecting, prospecting, approaching in our sales process, and we have ensured that our sales CRM systems and everything is also aligned to the way we understand our buyer's journey. But coming back to a more familiar one, uh, suspecting, prospecting, approaching, what this means is clearly identify, if I have this as a sales process, and approaching is an important stage as far as my sales process is concerned. Identify, how do I exit prospecting? How do I reach approaching? Now, reaching approaching can actually mean that in prospecting, and I identify it, and this is again more like an example. I have identified the DMU. I have spoken to an influencer or an evaluator. I have given him the right material. Is when and the person has said, fine, now let's meet the other DMU, or let's go to a demo stage. So the exit stage of approaching has defined my prospecting stage. A clearly defined entry and exit criteria. And exit from one is helping me identify the entry criteria of the other stage. Tasks that will be accomplished during each stage. Again, with the same example, if there is a demo that we are talking about, the client is asking for a specific meeting, or in the prospecting stage, the client is saying, why doesn't your MD why doesn't your founder give my MD a call, or why don't you share some details about your investors? So there is a specific task that has to be accomplished, which is defining. This is more about credibility building as a task, but there is a specific element there. A customer action, which is a task which is happening, specific task. A lot of time what happens is we do it based on feel or hygiene. I would again advocate move away from it, that we already have, and that's a playbook that's there in the head. I'm not asking you to take that away. But when we are talking about larger scalable sales system, and please understand, this is the each aspect of this is important. A system which is a defined process, and which helps you scale, which helps you grow incessantly. If you're looking at something like that, you start defining it beyond feelings or beyond hygiene. What that after 3 sales calls or after 3 meetings, it will move to the other one. Client seemed really pleased and happy and was smiling during a call. Yes, clients should always be smiling and be happy around calls. But what we are talking about is, did they ask for a specific task to be done? Was that task achieved? Was there, after a demo, a workshop? And this is something which is more in a SaaS kind of an environment, which is more complex and complicated, where we have specific implementation and configuration that we go for. Did a client ask for a workshop for solutioning? And did a client ask for proposal? Now, don't take it the other way. We are not saying that only the client should ask the proposal and the salesperson should never nudge the client for a proposal. But where we are taking a departure from is, there is a lot of you might have seen, and we are all guilty of it, just sending cold proposals without the client asking, or close price list. That's not what we are talking about. Even after a nudge, the client said, fine, give me a proposal. Certain aspects of the pricing was discussed in those proposals. If that was done, that was defined as an entry stage in a certain entry in a certain stage, then that's where the task is accomplished. Define how to reach the exit criteria. As you will move further in the sales process, at times, and mostly if it's a complicated large B2B sale, the exit criteria will become proportional to the engagement. The engagement will keep on increasing. In the beginning, it's just perhaps a cold call, which is your suspecting or prospecting stage. You met 2 or 3 DMU. I am again taking a Spanco example because I have not unveiled what I am prescribing here. So a prospecting stage, meeting 2 or 3 folks in the organization. The next level of engagement is when the senior level DMU is being met with a basic outline of the right brochure and the material. The next stage can be a one level base level demo to introduce uh, the client's organization about your products. The second can be a detailed workshop with a lot of uh, actors from, or a lot of participants from both sides coming into the workshop. So you will see that as we move forward, there is more engagement, there is more time spent. In fact, earlier when we were doing this physically, there's a very interesting way that we used to try and picture it. Today there are analytics and all which try and show it. But what we used to do is every time we are having an interaction, we'll have a TS kind of a marker or a block against each client. And every time we are having an interaction, we will mark it, we will cross it. If there are RDMU meeting the client's senior level DMU, we'll cross it with a double marker. And you know that itself, the shading itself will try and show you how your engagement is improving. And we used to use some level of intuitiveness without a system. I'm talking maybe 15, 20 years back, and say that, you know, now this is pretty dark, which means we have moved to the next stage. It is still light. We have not reached the right stage. Focus on actions that salesperson needs to close sales. What I am trying to say here is that we have to focus on the buyer's action. But based on the buyer's action, the salesperson needs to act. All that is being discussed, it has to be in tandem with what the buyer is asking for. 5 cold calls, 4 1-minute calls, 3 bargains, and I'm not saying we all do it, but just putting it as a placeholder, is not sales action. Sales action is when we are able to have a demo. After the demo, the points were summarized in the right way. Client agreed to the point that was summarized. The gaps were identified. There was an agreement to go for a next level detailed demo where the gaps will be addressed, or a BRD which will be there. This BRD is a business requirement document, and it comes in a SaaS scenario. Those points were discussed and agreed, and then the salesperson acted on it. And a lot of these, very interestingly, can be embedded nowadays in CRMs. And it is also important that these are tangible and measurable points, moving away from just pure hygiene, but tangible points which can be measured. Aim is not to make robots, but to try and build some kind of predictability here. And advanced CRMs today also give you an option to send emails, send proposals, and I've even seen some which are able to organize demos. But even if that is not there, it's a self-reporting mechanism. Specific actions are reported in the CRM, and based on that, only the stages are moving. A few don'ts, very important. Some of them I have already covered. Don't only focus on hygiene. Hygiene is important, but that's not the one we are focusing on as far as the sales process is concerned. Define progress based on the input matrix of the salespersons. Again, like that can be picked up from the CRM. It's a point on. So don't define progress based on the salesperson's input matrix. Define it based on customer actions, and don't stop at sales closure. This is maybe the 4th time I'm repeating it, but you will see it how we have decided it and designed it on our sales stages. A very important one in the end, and that's crucial. If some of you start now going into the book and designing, and we start believing we'll have an army of replicatable salesperson, that's not what I'm prescribing. So the sales process paradox is too much process skills sales team, but sales team will also die without a sales process. So all of you, or many of you, would have heard of Six Sigma, which is the ultimate methodology to try and define quality and standardization. Now, the basic innovators or proponents of Six Sigma talk about two functions or two professions where this is not applicable, or Six Sigma cannot be applicable. One is the healthcare professional. You will not try and go and show in a crucial stage to healthcare professional who is only looking at it from a robotic perspective. You want the experience, the intuitiveness to come out when they are doing it. And the other is a salesperson. So this is nowhere prescribing the creativity of the salesperson is not crucial. A creativity of the salesperson defines a successful salesperson. This is all about, within that, trying to measure how we are progressing. And if we have different stages and we are looking at A flywheel or a funnel, these are the two methodologies. Funnel is not what a lot of organizations are going after. They're going after flywheel. But if they're going through a sales flywheel, then how is it progressing? No, how the frictions have to be removed, or what stages are there? Creativity will still be there. You will still maybe have to barge in, even if it does not get added. You might still have to use an innovative way to kind of reach out to somebody else, or use a relationship or a referral which you have with the client. You might try and bump uh, into a client at the next conference, or you might try and before a demo, try and probe the client to actually a client who's only talking, who's actually having a latent need, to probe him, not in a very methodical way, to let him come out with those actual needs and stress on the pain points that you have to solve. So those that creativity would be actually the crucial thing. This is more about creating a sales system. So this is a sample as far as these stages are concerned. Uh, that I have. If you will see, there is also a stage 0 where a lead is added, but lead contacting a lead, opportunity created. What were the product demos given? So this would also have other team members getting involved, and they also need to understand the sales stage. A walkthrough by the pre-sales team to understand need and fitment better. Technical solutioning is where you might have workshops, you might have BRDs, you might have other documents that you are giving, and you are making the client feel more and more comfortable that their problem is something that you will be able to, or whatever their pain point is, or whatever the job that needs to be done is being closed. Negotiating and contracting is not only commercial discussion, while mentioned. It can be any element which is there. Negotiating can also be about the customer success process, or about the support that you're trying to provide to the client, or the tax and SLAs that are there. Everybody loves closures, and the important point is it does not stop at closure. Implementation and live with successful integration and adoption. And this is more like a SaaS stage. But if we had 40,000 guards and I was at 8,000 guards, I am not successfully integrated or created a solution which is adopted by the guards. Coming to implementation of the sales process, along with the sales process, there will be a methodology which you will be using. So I don't know if you have come across it, but there is a client who already has identified everything in terms of his needs. So there is a needs-based methodology where you take the client's needs and you try and put benefits against it. There is a consultative selling methodology where you will be picking up from client's pain points. This is a client which just keeps on talking about his problems and problems and problems. So you need to probe effectively, probe with open-ended questions, try and break it to leading or close questions, summarize, and then try and show acceptance or gain acceptance of the solution that you're proposing and how your product fits into it. So these are different sales methodologies. I'm not prescribing any one versus others. We need to be adaptive, and based on our buyer journey, try and use any of this. While we are doing it, what does the salesperson understand and capture of the client's need is important part, where the CRM or the finer details of the process come in, and how do you document. Some of them are being documented just on the CRM or as MOMs, but how you document the entire thing so that it stays as a seamless flow at stage 7 and 8. Based on this, create a playbook, which is important. This will flow. Now, this last is where it will flow into the training aspect. What do you need to know about the customer? At what stage it is, at what size is the customer operating, how is the customer looking at the implementation process as far as sales is concerned, what to say. Storytelling is very important. It's very straightforward to give a demo. You just go through and I'm talking again from a SaaS example. It's nice UI, a lot of colors, you are able to see real life movement, you go through clicks and all, and everybody is impressed by the end of it. But mostly what I've seen is, if it is without storytelling, without understanding the buyer journey, their pain points, and relating it to outcomes, if I'm not able to relate it to the fact that in attendance the billing problem will be solved, or how we will go about understanding and achieving a billing problem, then it's just a demo. It might not get into sale, and the client will keep on evaluating other products or other methodologies. But if you're able to put us slowly, or what job was to be done, that is that would be important in the playbook. And how to do it, it's not necessary everything is happening in a Zoom call or a meet. There is content to support it. There are videos. There are other customer videos or referrals. There are actual detailed case studies or white papers that are being created. For the client, you go and create sample workflows. A lot of organizations now in SaaS are using workflow builders to show how we will configure it. Sample business requirement documents. Again, final 3 points. Continuously evaluate your sales product. Identify friction between stages. There is a possibility some stage is taking very long. Conversions are not happening from, in the previous example, say from product demo to technical solutioning. So either there is something wrong in the product demo or there is something missing in stage two. And it's possibility that you require for certain solutions two product demos, or there is a possibility that the way the demo is being given is not right, and the environment that is being set is not right for a product demo. Or from the client side, people who are being invited for the product demo are not the right people to even, they might be okay from a need perspective. So I'm a HR professional who's interested in understanding how the onboarding works and how the entire process works. But it's the plant director who needs to be there in the demo because he's facing the pain because 10 people are delayed. If you are able to keep on evaluating it, you will realize client specific and at a generic level where you might be getting stuck at which stage. This is just one example. Deep dive and analyze lost sales to fix the problem. Number of times we go and we try and understand where the problem was in a lost sale. It is mostly the response is either on a technical, you did not meet the cut, or one document was missing, or there is a financial thing. But hand over heart, we know that maybe we lost it at a stage 3 or stage 4 because some mix up happened. And we need to, and that needs to be smoothened up to ensure that we are having more wins than losers. Nobody likes to lose. So deep dive and analyze lost sales to fix the process. If you have a good relationship with the customer, in spite of losing it, ask the customer point blank beyond just the uh, final verdict or the final, communication from the buying committee, who might not be, who by the time that reaches already preset assumptions have been done, to try and understand from the other users and other people who were in the DMU or who were with you during the sales process. Sales training has a bad rap. A lot of time, how the entire sales training cycle works is beginning of the end of, let's start with the end of the quarter, which is what we all resonate and remember. End of the quarter, everything is uh, completely, it's a softer word, very harsh, ruthless, relentless as far as the quarter is concerned, complete number focus. Once that happens, and it's a good quarter, you perhaps celebrate, and then you have some training which are planned and bonhomie and camaraderie to kind of build relationship for beginning of the first 3-4 weeks of the quarter, and then you again go back to the cycle when everything is lost, and then you start again. So that's where a lot of times training gets a bad rap. The other one that at least I try and uh, brace with every time is, how do I cover everything? So in a SaaS world, you are talking about the industry, you're talking about the SaaS world, you're talking about competition. You have to try and tell about the technologies that are behind in terms of the API technologies, the cloud technologies, the AI and ML, how that is being used, how analytics layers are coming up, to understanding buyer personas, to customers, to eventually building the real skills which are required to win the sale. Because the rest can also be taken by technical and pre-sales teams. But you need to have 3 to 5 minute conversations on them. How do you cover everything? Is it even possible to cover everything? And where do I begin with a diverse team? Some people are now pros, they already know everything, but I am having this new set of people who are coming in. Then there are other people who are in the bottom quartile that need to be addressed. So how do I try and bring all of them together with a diverse team? So these are the very important questions. What we say is, again, this is tied up to the buying process and the buyer's journey and the buying process. To define sales training, look at the data, look at friction which is there in the earlier process, specifically look at behaviors you want to change and competencies to develop. It can be negotiation, it can be probing, it can be demo. So imagine that I don't want the salesperson to only give a 30-minute demo. I want him or her to focus on a outcomes. One idea that I have is, don't give him a computer screen, give him a whiteboard or a piece of paper and ask him to only do the entire demo on a piece of paper. and take the buyer through the entire journey and show the outcomes and relate to them on a piece of paper. Ensure you train on the CRM process, sales process, also the knowledge depository where what needs to be found as organizations grow and come to a certain level. There's a lot of knowledge, and a new or a salesperson who's not fluent in, you will always say, why don't you go and search there? And it becomes nearly an impossible task. There is a separate price for searching and figuring out the right document. Please tell them where those documents lie, how to go about it, at what part of the sales process, where can you pick up the right information. Prioritize on the industry overview, the industry that the person is working in. If I'm looking at the attendance example, the industry would include the billing industry, the ERP, the timekeeping industry. Try and understand and where we are on the entire curve. What is the adoption rate? Is it at early stage? Are we still looking at early adopters? So the salesperson needs to be knowing about your plan, where we are, what the end goal is, what we want to achieve. So I was with a job board company called Times Jobs and TechGig, and we had to build competency in doing search because 60 to 70% of the market was IT and IT related, and Naukri and Monster were very large, had very large market shares. So what we did is very specific. It seems a bit back to school kind of a program, but we focused on 30 roles that are searched by recruiters. So in a job board, majority of the hiring happens by recruiters searching through the resume profile. They get a login and they search through the profiles. It's not straightforward, but it's simpler to search for a salesperson or a hotel management professional. But moment it comes to IT skills, you need to understand. You might be looking for a middleware developer, a BI analytics professional, a web developer, or a full stack developer. When a salesperson is going to a customer and comparing with the others, they need to understand what is the right way to search to get more and relevant profiles. So we went to the database and understood what are the most frequent profiles that are being searched on our database. We identified the search parameters for these profiles, and we made salesperson twice a week in the morning go to the computer, their login, demo login, note the results. We will give it to them on their CRM system to begin with. And once they do it, they put the results or they put the string that they have searched for 5 times. A person who was 80% effective would get a certification. And then reinforcement also becomes very important. We continuously went on reinforcing this through job aids. Everybody will get a cheat sheet. It will have region and location wise top 3 portals, number of people in certain roles in database. It will have the search strings which were effective in bringing up these people on time jobs. And that's how we tried and create an effective training program. The last one is hiring the right sales channel. Don't look at mini me's. Don't look at trying to replicate yourself when you're hiring sales talent. That's the biggest mistake that is done. Try and look at people who can execute the process, the sales process that was defined. Look at people who are related to your buyer's journey and buyer persona. Some products and some. So I was in BFSI earlier. There it was mostly speaking to CFOs, and we will show them different kind of financial options and structures and different kind of technical details for technical analysis. So we needed somebody who was nuts and bolts. Before that, I was in Sodexo. At that time, Sodexo was early stage, but it used to be very large deals, typically closed on the top. So there you are looking at somebody who can go and meet different buyer personas and different salespersons required. So you need to see that. You need to set up the interview process in the same way, and finally standardize hiring. If you're having 8 questions, 3 rounds, and a certain way of asking, ensure that everybody goes through that. If there's a case study which is there to see how somebody probes well or she probes well because that's part of it, ensure that that's done. Eventually, hiring has an onboarding as an equally important part. Salesperson in your environment, even from the same industry, will not be productive from day one. If you're looking at a 60 or a 90-day plan, while it will get embedded into your training plan, try and have a onboarding process which is aligned with the hiring process to ensure that the productivity is met within expected timelines. In a sales hygiene, when we say it, typically is if you would have heard any salesperson come, the first expectation is that Nilabh, do 50 calls this month, add 25 new leads onto your pipeline, try and ensure that 30 proposals are sent by this uh, by every month. That's sales hygiene. That's what's termed as sales hygiene. When I was specifically talking about the sales process, I was saying sales process is not supposed to be aligned with your sales hygiene. Sales process or sales stages have to be aligned with what the buyer is acting on and how you are able to nudge the buyer to act the way you want to close a sale. Don't share a price before you understand where the buyer is in his or her journey, because it will achieve nothing for you. A one pager should is something that should be definitely provided, because an elevator pitch is very important. What you can try and do as far as do is in that same document, try and share the ROIs, or the return on investment that you are able to generate for the customer. But it's better to know where the buyer is at his stage. We get a lot of this interest where the buyer or the procurement uh, person from the client side is specifically asking for a price. They're largely looking at one more bid to come in to ensure that the what they have shortlisted or whom they are going to go ahead with, their cost can be justified or they can bring that cost down. So this is in my experience. So I would strongly advocate against picking any third party frameworks. The best that you can get is any of the standard CRM will definitely give you all the insights and analytics that you want. I would again, and we work with, and this is something which I've been doing for the last 8 to 10 years. I have worked with some of the leading CRM providers in my experience. First thing that I have done is I have not taken their cut paste stages or processes, because I have not believed that they're good guide. We can pick them up, but I need to understand my buyer journey, how I want to progress on that. So that's the first thing that I prescribe. And once I know my buyer well, then I know what I am looking at when I'm setting up the entire framework. That I want to move to a 15% conversion from 1 to 6, and how I want to do is by moving this from this stage to the other. And this is the TS or the time spent that I'm there. If I'm able to do it, analyzing it is pretty straightforward or simple. And if you're listening to the customers and the salespersons well, you will always get enough inputs. Not a very big fan of using third party cookie, because sales, what I tried to say earlier, is not a cookie cutter kind of a model that I will say one size and it fits all. And I would advise against that. In B2B, we are not, I agree, we are not talking to buyer. We are talking to a buying unit normally. There is difference between a B2C and a B2B is very simple, that it's not one person who's making a decision, though it's oversimplification to say that in B2C, it's one person who's making the decision. In B2B, it's the unit, and everybody has their entire roles. Somebody is an evaluator, somebody is going to specifically talk to you in procurement in terms of pricing, while somebody else would be the decision maker who signs on the dotted line, or the influencer. Pick up the decision maker and influencer in terms of the buyer persona. And I have figured out and I have uncovered that it's mostly going to be it's not exactly going to be copybook from one to the other, but you will be able to pick up similarities. So if I say 3 to 4 years back, when we were into and we understood that a lot of growth that we will get is with early stage companies who are growing along with us. The buyer for us was either the founder or the head of TA for them, and they had a typical career path or a typical track record by which they would be coming you know uh, to this role or this position, in terms of the other companies that they have worked from, the background that they're coming from, the interest that they have. Definitely, again, oversimplification, but they'll be interested in tech. They would mostly with pedigree colleges uh, uh, of certain things. They would have reached a certain level of investment. They would be younger many of them much younger than me, so uh, so they would be younger with 8 to 10 or 12 years experience. So if I understand this buyer persona well, and I understand what strikes, and I have always done it, and I'm not saying just because I was speaking or being recorded. I've always done it to the extent that I have tried to so based on this, I tried and discovered more about the entire IIT ecosystem and what IITs mean, and what is it typically in terms of a hostel life in IIT, and what are the high houses in say Kharagpur or in Delhi, and what kind of events do they go for, and the very simple fact that they're very analytical and very quick in decision making, and typically will not give you a second chance. So it was used from that angle to do it. You can't create for all, and you should not focus on creating, but do it for the DMU, decision maker, and implementer. Separate thing is when you're doing a buyer persona in a B2B, you will have to first do the DMU. You will have to create the decision making unit, create a chart of, understand who is at what level of the decision making. You will have to understand what is the decision criteria. Everybody will not have the same criteria. Somebody will have business as a criteria. They are looking at the overarching picture. Somebody will have financial as a criteria. Somebody will have relationship as a criteria. They are looking, they're only going to do business if they're comfortable doing that business. So understand that and then try and take it from there.